Today I want to share a message to a particular group of people. It's not for, have you ever been to church and you thought, this sermon's not for me? Has anyone ever done that? No one's admitting it? Come on, have you ever been to church and like the pastor gets up and says, so today I'm going to preach about how to be a good mother. And you're sitting there and you're a man and you're like, this sermon's not for me. It's not for me today. Or someone gets up and says, I'm going to preach to all the parents in the room. And you're a kid and you're like, preach to them. Yeah, preach to them. You know, have you ever been there where it's like you hit a segment? Well, this is kind of that way. Today I'm going to preach to everyone who's young. By young, I mean under the age of 30. Okay, that is young. Here's the way I divide it. Okay, and if you don't know, if you are between the age of 0 and 30, you're young. If you're between the age of 30 and 60, you're middle-aged. That's middle. If you are over 60, I do not mean it as an insult. I do not think it is insulting to call someone old. There's nothing insulting about being experienced and mature and to have wisdom. However, just because you're in one of these categories does not mean you're wise, but definitely experienced, at least. And so that's the last category, is 60 and on. You know, I used to say 60 and 90, and I had a couple of people that were past 90 that got frustrated. Well, what does that say about us? I'm like, I don't know. You have to draw the line somewhere, okay? So this message is for everyone in here who's under the age of 30. Who is that? Raise your hand. Under the age of 30? Okay. So you know who you are? Okay. Now, if you are under the age of 30, if you're over the age of 30, and you're listening to this sermon, you're going, so what, can I just go to sleep? No. Because every single message that we share, even messages that are, let's gear this towards women, it still applies to everyone else, but there are some messages that seem to apply even more to others than others. You know what I'm saying? Because, for example, if someone is going to be arrested, I would bet a lot of money it's probably not a 70-year-old. It's probably someone under 30. They're the ones out there causing mischief. They're the ones out there causing trouble, you know, and vice versa. You can find things that relate to particular groups of people, even if it's not an absolute. So this is my advice to every young person here, everyone under the age of 30, my advice on how to end your youth as a strong Christian. Because there's a good chance you're going to pass the age of 30 and look back and go, I'm not a very strong Christian. What happened? There's a very good chance. So this is my advice on how, if you do these 5 things and do them now, you start now, you won't ruin your life. And by the age of 30, you'll be going strong, ready to pass the baton to another generation. So I have 5 points. Here's the first one. This is my first piece of advice. If you want to ask me to only give one piece of advice, this would be it. You're under the age of 30? Here we go. Number 1, make God number 1. That's my advice. You got to make Him number 1. He has to be more important than anything else. It's not, well, yeah, I have my job, and I do my job, and God's on the side. No. My advice, you got to make Him number 1. It's not like, I'm really into girls right now, or I'm really into boys. So, hey, relationships. It's like, no. That can't be your number 1 priority. A person on this earth can't be your number 1 priority. You can't be your number 1. You need to make Jesus Christ. You need to make God number 1. There's a verse like to share this. It is Matthew chapter 16, verse 26. This is the verse I would suggest for every young person to memorize. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? In other words, your soul's the point. If you gain everything in the world, but God wasn't number one, so you lost your soul, you lost the game of life. Is there anyone young that plays chess? Anyone play chess? Anyone play chess? You play chess? Anyone else? Is anyone that has no clue? You hear chess, you're like, never heard of it. Heard of it, don't know how to play it. Okay. Chess, you have all these different pieces, right? You got pawns, you got bishops and knights, and some of these pieces are really fun on how they move on the board. Like, it's really fun to pick up the knight. That's the horsey if you don't know the pieces, okay? It's really fun to... he actually goes in a circle. It's 1, 2, and 1 over. It's like the places he can go is in a circle. So he's like leaping in this circle everywhere he goes. And like you have bishops that are sliding across in castles, and then you've got this powerful queen. Why the queen is the most powerful piece on the board, I don't know. That doesn't seem right to me. Yeah, this queen is this powerful force, and you don't want to lose your queen, because it can go anywhere, and it can take everyone on, and it towers above all these other little pieces. And while you play chess, this is one mistake that a lot of people make, at least it's a mistake I can make. I can get so interested in all these other pieces and forget there's only one piece that matters. There's only one. I have to protect the king. And if I lose him, I lose the game. Forget the queen and all of her power and glory. Forget the little pawns. You have to have the king. He's the number one. He's the point of the whole game. And you got to get the other guy's king. That's what it's all about. The same is true with life. You can have a successful career. You can have a great relationship. You can have this perfect little family. You can have fame. You can have fortune. You can have whatever your heart's desire. You could win at everything you dream of to get out of this life. But if you don't have God, it was all pointless. My advice to everyone under 30 is right now, you need to make God the number one, the most important piece of your life. You can fail at everything else. And if God's number one, you win. That's my first piece of advice. And I would advise everyone who's over the age of 30 to help aid this effort. Do you know what we do to everyone who's under 30, especially on days like today? I'll probably do it when they come to the stage even. Whenever we bring up our seniors, what do? We come over, we ask them questions. And what question do we always ask? We say, so, what are your plans? Meaning, what are you going to do with your life? Where are you going to work? What are you going to do? How are you going to make money? And we are signaling to them that that's important. That's number one. What are you going to do with your life? That's what it's all about. Sometimes we go over, we ask, have you ever spent time talking to someone? We even do this with really young kids. We'll come over and say, so, do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend? Huh? Do you? Is there someone special in your life? Have you found someone yet? Yeah, we act, and do you know what we're doing? We are signaling to them that this is the most important thing you ought to be doing in your life. This is it. But what if we didn't? What if we actually What if we actually knew the advice we needed to give to the youth? Which is make God number one. And what if we came over and said, so, what's God been doing in your life? How's God going to be using you? Do you know yet? What spiritual gifts do you have? Has God answered any prayers lately? You know, we have this little window. It's so small. I know if you're young, it seems like life goes slow, but it doesn't. It speeds up. It goes so fast. And we have this little window where we have someone under 30 in our life. Why don't we use this little window to speak as much Jesus as we can into their life as possible? Because I guarantee they're not getting it anywhere else. So let us be people that are encouraging our youth to make Jesus number one. Now for my second point. Here's my advice. You gotta stay in church. You have to stay in church. Every generation has a group of people that start to leave church. It always happens. Generation Z is leaving the church like we haven't seen before. When we first started doing polling and started doing the Gallup poll to see church attendance, it was the late 1930s. You know what percentage of Americans were in church in 1930s? 1937, 1938? Around 72 and 73%. Whoa! Can you imagine that? It's a huge number. And this has just continually declined, generation after generation. The baby boomers really messed it up. Those 60s people went nuts. and it just, yeah, is there baby boomers in here? It's all your fault, you know. But it keeps going and going. But this generation, there's a group that they're leaving. And what's scary is the polling would always show that they had intentions of coming back. Other generations that left. They would say, I don't want to be at church right now, but when I have kids someday, it's probably important to raise people in church. They had values still, and they followed through with it. They came back when they started having kids. They came back later in life. This is a generation right now that's going, I don't want it. I don't need it. And I'm never coming back. Well, my advice to you, it's going to be very, very tempting to slip away from church. It's one thing to try to figure out how can I dodge church whenever I'm living in my parents' house. You get out on your own. And it's a choice. Where will you be on Sunday? And the odds are it's going to be very tempting for the majority of the youth right here, right now. There's a good chance you will not be in church anywhere. And my advice to everyone here is make it a priority. Now, I believe we ought to be very patient, especially with young people and church attendance. I hate whenever has anyone ever had someone beat you over the head while you're not in church? It wasn't, it could be a genuine, hey, we missed you, and then it could be, what's wrong with you? Where are you? Well, it was a lot easier to go to church when people worked Monday through Friday. And it was a lot easier to go to church when everyone's off at 5 o'clock and everyone had Sunday off and 70% of your entire community was going to church. That makes it pretty easy. Our culture has shifted. We now have people working crazy shifts, 12, 14-hour shifts. They're working on. I once preached in a church. The guy worked all night long, came to church dirty in his uniform. He came in and he would always come in out of breath. He'd sit down in the pew and I would get and start preaching, and right away, every single week, he'd fall asleep. And I would try to wake him up. I'm like, good morning! Hey! Jesus loves you! And he's like, I mean, he's out. And I understood. I mean, good grief. That's hard. It's hard. We live in a difficult society. I'm like, he's even here. How is he here? That's amazing. I had to encourage him the best I can and not get on to him because he's asleep. We need to be very patient and gentle. And so this isn't me trying to beat anyone up. I'm just telling you, if I was going to give advice to someone younger than 30, I'd say, make God number one. And the second thing is I'd say, stay in church. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 and 25 says this. And let us consider how we may spur one another toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. This is why you need to stay in church, because there is a hole inside of your soul. It's at the very bottom. It's not huge. It's not this big gouge. It's a little pinhole. Just a little pinhole. And it's not just in yours. It's in mine. It's in all of ours. And continually, our faith is leaking. It just leaks out. It doesn't just drain out. It's not like, oh no, I need to go. It's just a slow little leak. And when life squeezes us, it comes out a little quicker. But we're just continually leaking all the time. And when we come to church, we come to a place where we hear a message from God, inspirational singing, friends of people who have shared the same faith as us, people that challenge us, people that we respect and love, people that we've grown to care about and that care about us. And we get poured back in. And then it just keeps draining. Then the next week we pour it in. And it keeps draining. And then we miss a Sunday. And it doesn't seem that bad. In fact, it wasn't even for me. I'm 32 years old. He's preaching people under 30. It wasn't even for me today. I didn't miss that much. I didn't get that much out of it. I didn't really connect to the songs this weekend. I just wanted to sleep in. And you miss a few weeks. And you don't even realize you're draining. And one day, years from now, you look back and go, I feel so distant from God. And you won't even know why. You won't know why. So my message to you is stay in church. Stay the course. Find some place where you can use your gifts and just be there and connect with people. And this is also the message for everyone older. If there's a young person who makes it through our doors, you better be treating them like they're gold. Because they came. They're here. Praise the Lord. Awesome. You have a young person, especially if there's a young person who's coming through our doors, they're younger than 30 and they've already left their parents' house. They need a hug every time they come in this door. They need to be loved on and treated with so much grace and so much gentleness. Because it should be a joy for them to be around God's people. Number 3, this is the third thing I would advise. If I was going to give advice, which I am, I would say, allow God to determine your morals. That'd be the third thing I'd say. And I believe this is very important for Generation Z. This is a generation, every generation has to struggle with this, but this is a generation that has some very unique issues that you have to decide right now. Where do your morals come from? Do they come from yourself? Do they come from your friends? Do they come from society? Or do they come from God? You only have 3 choices. They either come from within you, they come from around you, or they come from above you. And you have to decide now. How are you going to decide what is right and what is wrong? Isaiah chapter 5. Oh, does anyone like this verse? This is a verse everyone either likes or hates. Here it is. This is one of the big whoa verses. The entire chapter of Isaiah has 6 woes. Whoa, 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 whoa. And this woe now. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. In other words, it's an individual who hears what God says from above and says, when God says, this is what is right and wrong, and this person down here goes, I disagree. In fact, everything you said, I'm going to say is evil. And everything you say is evil, I'm going to say is good. And Isaiah goes, woe to you. Don't do that. And my plea to you is to just be determined to surrender to God and to say, Lord, whatever you say is right and wrong, I'm going to go along with it. Last week, a Gallup poll came out for Generation Z. When I was in high school, all the polling showed about 1% of Americans, and which was 1% of my generation too, would have been considered gay or lesbian or trans. Last week, the Gallup poll came out. Over 20% of Generation Z says they're a part of the LGBTQ plus community. You can't be a community if you don't know each other. It's a group. 21 out of 5. That's staggering to me. But I think it's one of the most important topics of your day. Everyone under 30 has to make a decision about what's right and wrong. And I want you to know what God says about your sexuality. God made us male and female. It's based on our biology. Our soul that He put in these bodies, it doesn't even have a gender. The soul that He put inside of our physical body, it just is what it is. And God's desire is for boys to grow up and be men, and for girls to grow up and be ladies. And it's His desire for men to be with women, and for women to be with men. And there's no question about it. If you go on Facebook and you get on the internet, you'll hear all these weird arguments out there. It's all rubbish, I tell you. He's very clear in His scriptures. Romans chapter 1, he speaks so clearly about what his view is. And what each one of you have to do now is decide this. When you come in contact with something that doesn't sit right with you, and you go, I don't know, I know this is what they're teaching, I know this is what God says, but where are your morals going to come from? And my advice to you is make God number one, stay in church, and my third piece of advice is allow God to determine your morals. Don't try to change His mind. He's already written the book. He knows what He wants. He's declared it. It's true. Number 4, find the right person and find them the right way. This is bigger than I ever realized. Okay, there was a huge wake-up call in my life after I'm 30. Okay? I'm already married by that point. I'm already settled in. And I finally looked around and went, there are so many nightmares. There's so many women I could have been married to that I would have hated. Oh no! I got so lucky. I had no idea. When I was young, it looks like you just see all these pretty faces, and you're like, whoo, so many options. There are not very many choices. There are not very many options. There are more nightmares than you realize. And most of them are nightmares. And you can ask anyone. You don't just ask men. You can ask women. How many men are there that you know that you do not Wouldn't you agree if you're over 30 that there are more people that you would not want to be married to than that you would want to be married to? I mean, there's a lot of nightmares there. And when you're young, you're not thinking about this. You're just going through life going, good choices, all these pretty choices. And we're allowing attraction to determine this vital decision of who I'm going to be with and start a life with and who I'm going to have kids with and where I'm going to live. And we're making this based on how I lust. And it's a bad way to go about it. I fell into fortune. I moved back to college, my senior year of college. I had moved away, moved in with my parents, so I'd be closer to a church I was ministering to. And then it hit me. If I don't get married this year, I'll have to marry someone in my church someday. I'll have old women trying to set me up with all their granddaughters. And I thought, I can't do this. I have to get married now. So I moved back to school to go on the hunt. I was going to go find my wife. How do you do this? Well, my strategy, I decided I'll just take a different girl out every single week. Like a smorgasbord. And at the end, I would see which one I want to go for. Does that seem like a good strategy to you? Any takers on that strategy? That was my idea. So every week I'm like, I'll take this one out. Okay, how about this one? Okay, how about this one? Now, during this time, it was this semester that I ran into Rachel Adams. I ran into her and I'm like, hey, you want to go on a date? She's like, I don't date. I can't. You don't date me or you don't date at all? She's like, I don't date anyone. I'm like, yeah, I don't have time for you. This is complicated. This takes effort. This takes me pausing and understanding. I do not have time to figure out something that sounds ridiculous. So I pushed her aside, took out a roommate instead. And I just kept on going. I ended that first semester and I was so confused. And I went on a retreat, a December retreat in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. I was with a buddy. And I dropped to my knees and I started to pray. And I said, Lord, who do you want me to marry? And it was like common sense hit me. It was like God spoke to me, not with this audible voice, but with just, duh. God said, Darren, just marry the most Christ-like person you know. And it was this huge revelation. I'm like, oh, that's what I need to go for. That's what you need to go for. You need to find the right person. And it was in that moment, I'm like, oh, well, who's the most Christ-like person I know? Who looks like Jesus? Who loves Jesus even more than me? Who would help my faith? Rachel Adams. I'll go marry her. And I went back to the college determined to find this Rachel and marry her. That was my plan. And I succeeded. That's what you need. You need to wait for the right person. This is what it says in Songs of Solomon. Songs of Solomon says, daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Be patient. Don't go, hey, I want someone. No. You'll find a nightmare. You'll find a nightmare, trust me. Is there anyone in here that even did it wrong? You married a nightmare? Anyone did that? Anyone did that? When you scream, listen to the sermon! Just scream, listen to this sermon, it's really good! Don't find a nightmare. Be patient. Be patient and wait. Find a Christian. Don't find someone who goes, oh yeah, I believe in God. No, find someone who is in love with Jesus Christ. Find someone who shares your faith and your values. Be patient for that person because you're waiting for gold. And when you find them, that's when you jump. Now, you find the right person. My advice is you can't just find the right person. Find the right person and go after them the right way. I know this sounds so foreign now. And I know that most of our society rejects this teaching. But there is great value in waiting to have sex until you're married. And to go in this order. Marriage, move in together, and then have kids. Those that do it in that order have a 33% better chance of staying together. 33% better chance than those that switch it up. Than those that move in together, have kids, then get married. When you mess up that order, it just messes up the relationship. God knew what he was doing. He just did. And so my plea to everyone, if you're younger than 30, you need to decide right now, what is your path going to look like when you find that right person? Don't give up your heart and your body so quickly to someone who's not even committed to you yet. No! Rachel wouldn't even tell me she loved me until after we were engaged. Try that! Come on! And I am curious though, I've done this once before, I need to do it again. Not everyone was here before. I'd like for all the ladies to stand up. All the ladies. Every woman, stand up if you're a lady. If you're struggling with the word lady, just say if you're a woman. Stand up. Okay, here we go. Ready? If you have never been proposed to, ever, sit down. Okay? If you've never had two people propose to you before, never, sit down. How about if you've had 3 proposals? Okay, we're learning something about each other here. How about 4? 4 proposals? Okay, 5? Okay, 6? Anyone ever have 6 proposals? Anyone? Okay, how about 7? Sit down if you've never had 7 people propose to you before. Woo! Oh man! She got married and she's 19. She had 8 proposals. 8! How is that possible? Let me tell you how that's possible. Because when you're hard to get, you're more attractive. Every time. When you're hard to get, you're more attractive. Be hard to get. And it will drive men crazy, ladies. If you go, no, I'm not giving you me. I'm not giving you me until I get you. You want me, I want you, okay? So this is what it costs me. And if you hold your ground and you wait for the right person and you go about the right way, I guarantee when you get 30, you will not have a messed up life. You'll be rewarded for it. Number 5, here's my final advice. Anyone under the age of 30, here it is. Set the example. Don't let someone treat you like you're young and dumb. No, you're smart. You're a person. Yeah, a lot of youth are dumb. But you have the ability, to stand strong and to be an example for everyone else. This is what Paul wrote to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. Do not let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech. Isn't that interesting? No one around me knows how to talk to each other. Your whole family, they might be screaming at each other. Everyone around you might not know how you're supposed to talk to people face to face, not behind their backs. Guess what? I don't care how old you are, you can set the example and go, no, this is how we talk. I'll set an example in speech. I'll set an example in my conduct. I'm not going to fly out the handle. I don't care if I'm young or not. I'm going to set an example for everyone else. Follow my lead, everyone. I don't care how old or young you think I am. I'm going to set an example for you right now to follow. I will break all of my family curses right now. I'm going to live right. I'm going to set an example of what it means to love someone and how you go about love. And I'm going to set an example for purity. Follow my lead. That is awesome. That's the message that God has for you. Just because you're young, it doesn't actually get you off the hook for anything. You are to be a spiritual leader for everyone around you, for your church, for your family, for your friends. Set an example. That's my advice to anyone under the age of 30. And if you listen to this, and if you just take in a few of it, or if you at least wrestle with it, because I may have said something today that you might disagree with, at least wrestle with what I'm saying. Because if you do, I believe you'll be better for it. This is God's advice for the youth. It's His advice for you. Let's pray. Lord, I am just so grateful and thankful for you. Thank you so much for our youth that we have here at Miles City, and I love them so much. Lord, I've just been really blessed to be surrounded with some awesome teens, some awesome young men and women, and Lord, I'm proud of them, and Lord, I just pray that they would continue pressing forward in their faith. Lord, teach us how to be a good blessing in their lives, how to encourage them, and I pray that as we pass this baton of faith to them, Lord, I pray that they would take it. They would run the race. They would be faithful. And that they would pass the baton on to the next generation. It's in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that we all pray. Amen.